Let's jump right into this incredibly cinematic and deeply personal engineering explainer. We're looking at the origin of GhostMesh, but honestly, this isn't your standard dry architecture overview. It's an engineering memoir from Tony Millott. We're going to trace this wild journey that starts way back in the underground technical culture of the late 80s and lands right on a modern governed AI architecture. What's so cool here is that GhostMesh didn't even start as a software project. It started as a way of thinking.
The interface was never the system. That is the absolute foundational mindset we've got to grasp here. Really understanding a system means refusing to just click the shiny buttons they give you. It means pulling back the layers, tracking the protocols, and finding the actual grinding machinery hidden underneath the abstraction.
Beneath the given interface, the scene years.
So, to really get GhostMesh, we have to explore the underground technical culture that built that instinct to look under the hood. The late 80s and 90s scene era was this wildly tactile, experimental world. We're not just talking Unix and BBSs here. This was console modification, CD burning, the pirate software scene, 2600 and freaking culture, even satellite card hacking. Tony, who went by the handle Pale Horse back then, shared this world with his close friend Vic, known as Judas De Winter. Together, they literally spent years pushing systems way past their intended boundaries. Every piece of hardware was just a puzzle waiting to be torn apart.
Now, just to be clear for this explainer, we aren't handing out a how-to guide on hacking or freaking. What actually matters for our story is the intellectual habit they developed. It was this deeply ingrained refusal to accept opaque authority at face value. A console wasn't just a console, right? It was a map of hidden trust relationships just begging to be explored.
A mind in parallel, the human bottleneck.
Tony's own associative thinking became the second massive force driving this architecture. On side A, you've got the upside, incredible synthesis. His mind naturally runs in highly associative, parallel threads where a technical idea in one domain magically solves an operational problem in another. But then there's side B, the massive downside, state and retrievability. When you're crossing dozens of technical, personal, and writing threads, it becomes almost impossible to carry all that context reliably in just one human brain. Important reasoning just sinks below newer work.
He realized he was trying to build somewhere safe to put unfinished thought. And look, we shouldn't romanticize this limitation. It wasn't some genius superpower. It was a very real, desperate need to externalize a mind that was quite literally becoming its own bottleneck.
The continuity bottleneck when AI arrives.
This brings us to the ultimate catalyst. When powerful conversational AI arrived on the scene, it multiplied Tony's parallel threads exponentially. Suddenly, he had cognitive collaborators moving at his exact speed. But the context completely shattered across dozens of different conversations. The bottleneck absolutely stopped being thinking. It became continuity.
Naturally, his early efforts focused on trying to preserve the ghost in the machine. He ran experiments like Oracle and IMMORTAL, trying context transfers, apparent memory tricks, and archiving conversations. They all aimed to save the AI's identity. But honestly, they failed. It turns out, massive context windows don't automatically equal trustworthy continuity. The models drifted, hallucinated, and straight-up fabricated false memories.
Which led him to a pretty stark realization. I was saving the wrong thing. He figured out that a conversational intelligence is absolutely not a reliable system of record, just because it appears to remember. You cannot trust the ghost to hold your reality.
Then came the epiphany. I didn't need the same agent to survive. I needed the work to survive. That quiet, unmistakable shift changed literally everything about how his AI workflows were fundamentally designed.
Saving the wrong thing. The inversion.
This is the exact moment the architecture inverted. The whole paradigm shifted from preserving fragile agent memory to prioritizing durable history. The focus moved from a temporary conversation to governed work, from trusting agent memory to relying entirely on externalized state. Agent identity was swapped out for a durable work identity. Instead of an AI just asserting it did something, the system demanded a verifiable receipt. Continuity finally replaced the session.
Tony put it perfectly. I stopped asking the machine to remember reality. I started giving it reality it could re-enter. This is my absolute favorite insight of the whole explainer. This is exactly where Git enters the picture. Not as a code backup, but as the ultimate re-entry mechanism for temporary AI workers. So in this Git-backed reality, commits act as exact hard boundaries. Branches represent evolving work.
Pull requests act as evidence connecting code state to human authority, and receipts act as assertions. Git became the durable reality that allowed authority to survive long after a specific AI session was killed.
So, that chaotic tangle of parallel threads in one human mind literally transformed into an explicitly mapped architecture. You have the Tony brain component handling knowledge and archaeology, the share plane holding durable thought and artifacts, skills preserving repeatable operating methods, and the control tower providing operational observation and governance. What was once just a desperate need for external memory was now a disciplined topology.
The mesh remembers me, archive archaeology.
Decades later, that underground continuity is still alive. Check out this quote from Vic, Judas de Winter. The review result can be tied back to the exact code state instead of disappearing into somebody's comments. 30 years after satellite cards and BBSs, Pale Horse and Judas de Winter are still friends, still talking about systems. Except now, it's about Git-backed continuity and governed workers. They are still refusing to accept opaque black boxes.
Now here's where it gets wild. Tony starts running a massive historical archaeology campaign through this new architecture, and the system begins processing decades of his own forgotten threads. We're talking old conversation fragments, discarded architectures, long-forgotten project names, old precursors, and recovered relationships suddenly bubbling right back up to the surface.
Which brings us to this beautiful final progression of the whole engineering journey. It all started with one frustrating goal. I was trying to make AI remember.
Then, I built a system where the AI no longer had to remember everything. By externalizing the state, the authority, and the evidence, neither the human nor the agent had to carry the weight of the entire machine anymore. The architecture held the reality.
And then, the twist. Eventually, that system began reminding me. The architecture successfully externalized a way of thinking he'd been developing since the scene years, and now it was handing his own history back to him.
The mesh remembered before I did. The first mesh was how I thought. The second mesh was what I built. It leaves us with a pretty incredible question to chew on, right? If the ultimate challenge in AI isn't cognition, but continuity, what hidden parallel layers of your own mind are just waiting to be externalized? Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer. I really hope it changes how you look at the systems and the interfaces in your own work.